Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am literally so excited you're here today because we are going on a seriously mind-bending journey. Okay, so let's just dive right into it. Every single day, we all operate under this basic, unquestioned assumption about how reality works. We assume there's a me looking at an it, right? But what if that entire framework is just a surface-level illusion? Today, we're going to radically deconstruct how we perceive reality. We're moving through 4 distinct modes that go way, way beyond our ordinary understanding. We are going to peel back reality layer by layer, and trust me on this, by the end of this explainer, the way you view your own mind is going to fundamentally shift. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the subject-object illusion. Second, form without physical objects. Third, pure consciousness without objects. Fourth, consciousness without a subject. And finally, the emptiness of all things. All right, let's start with section 1, the subject-object illusion. So before we can actually deconstruct reality, we really need to define the baseline. You know, the everyday reality that we all use without even thinking about it. Our immediate experience captures this perfectly. Right now, in this very moment, there is a subject, which is you, the observer, and there's an object, which is the screen you're looking at, the observed. This is what we call ordinary subject-object duality. It's the absolute default mode of human experience. You're sitting there, taking in the information from this explainer, and the subject and the object feel like two completely separate, entirely independent things. But, well, we're about to completely break that duality apart. To take our very first step outside of that ordinary reality, we have to ask kind of a provocative question. Does truth actually require physical things? Like, does something need to have a tangible, material object attached to it to be absolutely true and objective? Keep that question in the back of your mind, because it's the master key that unlocks our first layer of deconstruction. Moving right along to section 2, form without physical objects. Welcome to mode 1 of our reality breakdown, where we just completely drop the physical object. Think about logic, mathematics, and formal systems. These fields actually prove something pretty incredible. Objective truth doesn't need to depend on physical stuff at all. The validity of math and logic rests entirely on internal consistency, necessary relations, and abstract structures. It definitely doesn't rely on empirical things you can actually touch. So the really crucial takeaway here is that objectivity is grounded in form, rather than material existence. I mean, 2 + 2 = 4 is an objective truth. That's true completely regardless of whether you have 2 physical apples sitting on your desk to count. So right there, we've already found objectivity without objects. Next up, section 3, pure consciousness without objects. Now we're going to cross the bridge from formal mathematics straight into the human mind. This is our first major step into Eastern philosophy with Advaita Vedānta. This is the perspective that when all objects of experience are negated, just totally stripped away, what remains is pure consciousness, or sit. Now, pay really close attention to what counts as an object here because it's wild. It is not just the external world, like the chair you're sitting on. Advaita Vedānta says your own thoughts, your perceptions, and even your emotions. Those are all objects too. If you completely negate all of those objects, if you wipe away everything you can perceive or think about, consciousness doesn't actually disappear. Instead, pure consciousness remains. It exists completely independently of whatever object it happens to be illuminating. So what exactly is left over? It's what Advaita Vedānta calls the Ātman. You can think of it as the self-luminous witness. It's this pure awareness that is aware of the thoughts, without actually being the thoughts. And this self-luminous witness is identical with Brahman. So, in this second mode of deconstructing our reality, we have successfully dropped the object entirely, and yet this profound subjectivity, this witnessing presence is still totally there. Let's keep going. Section 4, consciousness without a subject. All right, now we're taking a really radical shift into mode 3. What if we went the exact opposite direction? What if we keep the consciousness, but we completely delete you as the observer? Yogacara Buddhism explores this exact idea through Chittamatra, which basically translates to the mind-only understanding. And Yogacara does something absolutely fascinating here. It completely deconstructs the notion of an enduring personal subject. It dissolves this comforting idea that there is a permanent individual self, an unchanging you, just standing securely behind all of your experiences pulling the levers. So in this state, what remains is absolutely not an individual self. It's just a continuous flow of consciousness, chitta or vijnana. Think of it kind of like a rushing river. Experience is entirely mind only. There are thoughts, there are perceptions, there's awareness flowing constantly, but there is no permanent solid subject required to stand behind it all and claim it as theirs. Experience is just happening, it's a continuous flow, and it requires literally no enduring subject whatsoever. Wow. So we've now seen a world without objects and a mind without a subject. Which brings us to section 5, the emptiness of all things. And here we are, the final, ultimate stage of our deconstruction, the concept of shunyata from Madhyamaka Buddhism. Now this translates to emptiness, but wait. It is absolutely vital to understand that emptiness is not a substance. It's not some cosmic black hole or a dark void or some ultimate absolute entity hiding behind the curtain of reality. Shunyata simply means the complete absence of intrinsic nature in all phenomena. Madhyamaka goes a massive step further than any perspective we've talked about today, because it flat out denies inherent existence to both the subject and the object. And how does that work? It relies entirely on something called dependent origination. Neither the subject nor the object possesses an independent essence. They literally cannot exist on their own. Each only exists through dependent origination, meaning they only exist in relation to everything else. You are only a subject because there happens to be an object for you to view, right? And that object only exists as an object because you are there viewing it. When both poles of that duality are completely relinquished, what you have left is emptiness. Everything is completely, totally interdependent. Nothing stands alone. Let's just take a second to look back and marvel at this incredible philosophical puzzle we just put together to transcend ordinary dualism. In step 1, with Advaita Vedānta, we discovered pure consciousness beyond objects. We lost the object. Then, in step 2, with Yogacara, we dissolved the enduring subject while keeping that continuous flow of consciousness. So we lost the subject. And finally, in step 3, with Madhyamaka, we deconstructed both the subject and the object, revealing the absolute emptiness of all conceptual distinctions. We literally dismantled the baseline reality we started with at the top of the explainer. Which leaves us with one final, beautifully wild paradox. If both the subject and the object are empty, if they lack any sort of independent essence, then who exactly is actually watching this explainer right now? Is it an enduring self? A continuous flow of mind, pure luminous consciousness, or is it just dependent origination in action? I'm going to let you just sit with that one for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, keep questioning the nature of your reality.